The Detroit Red Wings are no longer in control of their fate. But did you realize it's gotten this bad? Yesterday, we spoke about the math behind the Wings and the amount of wins that they would need to realistically open up a chance to making the Stanley Cup Playoffs. But every day, those odds are going to change. And especially today, we have ourselves an updated list to look at. Right now, the Red Wings are 1 point back of the Ottawa Senators for the second wildcard spot. The Boston Bruins, however, pulled off a big overtime victory over Buffalo yesterday to propel themselves to 88 points. Boston has a pretty big hold on that first wildcard. In fact, they have more points than the second and third place Metro teams. So you could definitely say that there is room to maneuver. But with that said, I wanted to head over to this article posted by Bob Duff on Detroit Hockey Now that talks about how the current Detroit Red Wings slide is worse than you thought. This will be linked in the description down below. Also, before we dive into this, I wanted to go over the MoneyPuck.com playoff odds. I'm not too sure when it was updated. Okay, here we go. Updated Thursday, March 26th at 3:48 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Boston going out there with their big overtime victory. It's propelled them to a 75% chance at making the dance. Pittsburgh is at 74.2. Ottawa 73.4. The Isles and the Wings are down there below 50%. It's not looking good for the Red Wings, a team that was in a top 3 Atlantic spot for most of the year. With that said, let's dive into what Bob Duff wrote about on Detroit Hockey Now. He spoke about how things are going poorly for Detroit, and as bad as it feels, the reality is it's much worse than that. On January 24th, the Red Wings had 69 points and were tied with Carolina for the top spot in the East. Carolina was ahead based on points percentage. Overall, Detroit was third in the NHL standings. Oh, my goodness, man. Time flies. Time flies. That was 2 months ago, and there was an Olympic break in there. The fact that the team goes from that high down to where they are right now is absolutely baffling. Since that point, the Red Wings haven't gone so much into a slide as they have crashed and burned. Over the past 2 months, they have gone 6, 9, and 3, garnering 50 points, compared to a potential, 6 plus 9 is 15, plus 3 is 18. They had a possible 36 points. They've gotten only 15. That's the worst record in the entire Eastern Conference and tied with the San Jose Sharks for 30th overall in the NHL since this marker, January 24th. Ay, man. Only the Canucks have fared worse than the Red Wings over the past 2 months? Are you kidding me? The Canucks are terrible. Bruh, we've been making videos about Vancouver all season. It's a disappointment in BC. Detroit is the second worst team in the NHL the past 2 months. They've slipped to 10th overall in the East and 13th in the NHL. Third overall, all the way to 13th in the span of 2 months, minus an Olympic break. On January 24th, the teams that Detroit now finds itself jockeying with for playoff positions were distant from the Red Wings in the standings. Montreal was 8th in the league, Boston was 10th, the Islanders were 13th, and the Flyers were 16th. Distanced and seemingly out of the race were the Blue Jackets in 23rd, and the Senators in 25th. Now, that is absolutely shambolic when you look at it that way. Thanks, Rick Bowness, for going out there and totally taking charge of the Columbus Blue Jackets and ruining the fates of some of these other teams and their playoff aspirations. Thank you, Matthew Schaefer, for going out there and just dominating and doing what you need to do to help that Islanders team be the best that they can be. And thank you to the Ottawa Senators for going out there and just all of a sudden turning it on. I actually do want to make another video about Ottawa later in today's show, so stick around for that. The article goes out there and says that the 2 months have made such a big difference. Everybody's paying attention right now, and nobody is losing, Todd McClellan said. Well, almost everybody. While Detroit stumbles down the stretch, the rest of the teams in the Eastern playoff battle are roaring. Columbus are 14-2-4. Ottawa are 15-3-2. They're tied with Buffalo for the NHL's best record since then. Each have accumulated 32 points. The Islanders are 7th. Montreal's tied for 8th. Boston is 13th, and Philadelphia is 15th. Meanwhile, Detroit is 31st in this span. McClellan looks upon Detroit's situation as being about taking care of business. It's a real indicator that you better take care of your own work and not count on anybody on any given night from now till the end of the year. We're all aware of that. We know what's in front of us, schedule-wise. That, obviously, is the biggest deterrent for anybody trying to pay attention to Detroit Red Wings playoff odds. I was about to say draft odds. Like, no, the Wings are technically not in that spot anymore. They're not thinking about the NHL draft and the draft lottery. They're thinking about the dance. But, hey, guess what? Even if they were to think about the draft, they don't have a first-round pick to settle for. It's over in St. Louis for Justin Falk. So with that said, this has become a lot more of a difficult situation. The Detroit's destiny conversation seems like every few hours there is a new result in the NHL. There is another game being played that just beats Detroit down. And heading into March 26th, today, you have games from the Blue Jackets. They're playing the Canadiens. The Senators are playing the Penguins. The Islanders have the Dallas Stars. And then, of course, you do have the other lower teams going out there and fighting it out. Philadelphia is against Chicago. New Jersey is against Nashville. Detroit doesn't play until tomorrow, where they got the Buffalo Sabres, and that is going to be super important as well for the NHL standings. But you gotta keep your eyes out for the Blue Jackets, the Islanders, and the Sens. These teams can be the ones that really make it difficult for Detroit to take control of their own fate once more. Yes, it is true, if they win their remaining 11 out of 11 games, they have a less than 1% chance of missing. But the fact that it's not 0? That already tells you where things are. For a team that was 3rd overall in the National Hockey League, it's a very difficult thing to process. Oh, we can actually do this here. Let's go to January 24th and see that the Red Wings were 3rd in the league. Ay, how the mighty have fallen, eh? With that said, I think Bob Duff makes a really good point. It has gotten worse for the Detroit Red Wings, and I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. How does all this make you feel? Article is going to be linked in the description for your viewing pleasure. Let me know all you think about the Red Wings and whether or not they're going to be able to make it. I hope you enjoyed this Swedish Astral 99, and bye.